insider for the NFL over at The Score. He is Jordan Schultz, joining us here on the Lombardi Line. Jordan, hope all is well. Thanks for joining us this morning or afternoon, wherever you might be. What's the latest that you're hearing with the number one overall pick? Is it Young or Stroud going to Carolina?
I think it's going to be Bryce Young. Now, that doesn't mean that Carolina doesn't like C.J. Stroud. Obviously, there was a lot to like about his workout, and I think all these guys have helped themselves in their pro days. When it comes to Young, though, there's a Steph Curry-like 2.0 feel to him that a couple teams have told me about. And what that means is just the way that he can throw the football is so otherworldly and so smooth and talented that I think it's really hard to pass him up at one. And obviously, as you both know, the knock on him has been size. He's slight. He's not 220, 6'3", but I think there's so much to like about him. He's so smart. And I was even talking about him with Bijan Robinson as well as C.J. Stroud. And Bijan was telling me that, firsthand when he saw Bryce Young, how impressive it was late in the game that he made those couple plays that needed to be made against Texas that really were the difference. And I think, Stroud, you could say, well, he did a lot of the same things against Georgia in the national semifinal when he was tremendous. And I think he answered a lot of the questions. Could he move around the pocket? Could he create that wizardry type of plays? And I think both of them have it. But I think when it comes to Carolina at one, it will be Bryce Young.
I agree, Jordan. I really do, and I've been saying it. I think the tape doesn't lie, and the tape says Young. Not that Stroud's not a good player. I think there's some risk in Stroud, but the tape doesn't lie on Young. To me, it's not close. And I think what Robinson said, I think most players that competed against Bryce Young would echo those sentiments, that he's unique. His arm is incredible, much better than what most people thought based on his size. So I agree there. How about Anthony Richardson? To me, I'll share with you what I've heard and see what you heard.
Yeah.
To me, I don't hear him in the top 5. I don't hear him in the top 10. I hear athletically, I hear wonderful. I hear he's a year away from being 2 years away, that you're not sure about it. There's some debate about how can he come along, where he should have gone back to school. Give us your take on that.
So I think there's a couple things with Anthony Richardson that are really important. Number one, he is the youngest quarterback in this class. He's 20 years old. And, one of the things that stands out to me was when he really needed to make plays against some of the top teams, LSU, for example, he did. Now, he certainly had his lion's share of not so great plays because he is young, he is inexperienced, and Florida did not have the type of talent in terms of the receiving weapons and skill positions that some of these other teams did. And I think that's really important as well. When it comes to Richardson, though, he is the unicorn or even alien of this class in terms of his athletic profile, pushing 6'5", running in the 4.4s, the cannon of an arm. I mean, these are things that I would say, Michael, are not even generational. They're once in a lifetime in terms of some of the gifts. And I think he is probably a couple, 3 years away. And that's why I mentioned a team like, and maybe this will surprise you, but the Lions at 7, for example, where he could sit behind Goff for a year or two. Goff has one more year left on his deal. Maybe it's a team like that where he doesn't have to play right away and he can take his time. But I think in terms of the upside, there's no doubt that he'll go in the first round. I don't know where that is, but I think all 5 of these guys are first-round picks, including Hendon Hooker and Will Levis.
Yeah, I'm not disputing he'll go in the first, Jordan. I definitely see that. I think the value, his skill set is too good. Hey, Hendon Hooker, to me, he's been getting a lot of pub. I'm not sure that, when you break it down, he's not going to play next year. He's going to miss the whole season. You got to pick up the 5th year with basically 3 years of work. But, if you can't get him at the top of the second, there's some team maybe at the bottom of the first. I'm a little leery of that. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It makes sense in the mock drafts. It doesn't make sense in terms of being in the draft room. But, where are you on Jalen Carter and the off-the-field incidents?
Yeah, one thing I'll mention, too, about Hooker, Michael, is I would actually ask you, is the main problem with him the fact that he's 25? Is that a real issue?
It's a huge issue. Yeah, sure it is. It's a huge. He's going to be 26 before he plays. You're going to basically get one contract, and then I think you add another layer to it. is as good as he was in college. That offense is not a pro-style offense. I know they're in 4 receivers. They're in 1 protection all the time. He's looking at half of the field, and so you've got to go back to Virginia Tech and kind of watch him play there a little bit to kind of see how he does. He's got great character. He's got great accuracy. He's got great size. He's fearless in the pocket. There's a lot to like about him. But when you're talking about a first-round pick, you're not going to have him for a year, and he's coming off a knee, and he's older. So those are the things that add up against him. It's not that you dislike the player, but, what happens in mock drafts is we don't grade players. We put them in a round. And when you have a grading system, there's only so high you could grade players, and most teams have grading systems.
Yeah. I would say 32 touchdowns total, 2 picks, SEC Offensive Player of the Year, checks all the character boxes. And then, we can transition to Jalen Carter, who, I don't know Jalen Carter. I don't know if he's a good guy or if he's immature or whatever it is. But I can tell you that I have no doubt that he does worse. His floor is still at 10. I don't see him getting past there. Obviously, he's in Indianapolis when he was sent home. He had to go back to Georgia. Then he comes back the next day. It was strange. It was strange. And then he obviously has a pro day where he's not able to finish. He's not in great shape. But I think the talent, and as you mentioned, the tape is tremendous. And I don't really see how he gets past Philadelphia at 10.
One thing, Femi, Philly does have 2 players on their team. They've got Davis and Dean, 2 Georgia players. That's a great resource for you as a general manager because you can go to them and say, okay, I need the real deal here. Like, don't lie to me. Tell me about this kid. And really, and this is going to stay in the room. It's not getting out. I'm never going to say anything to anybody, but I need to know what you know about this kid because he's going to be, if I draft him, he's your teammate, and you got to be right about it. That's a huge help.
Yeah, I think that's kind of similar to the situation we saw with the Arizona Cardinals when they drafted Tyrann Mathieu. They had Patrick Peterson already there at LSU who played with him, and they kind of were able to bounce that off there, and they were comfortable going with Tyrann Mathieu. Jordan, I want to ask you about the Seattle Seahawks, because when you were talking about Anthony Richardson, you brought up the Detroit Lions as a potential situation where they could use Jared Goff as that bridge quarterback while Richardson is still developing. Do you think Seattle is still in this quarterback market near the top of the draft, or are they mainly looking toward one of these top defensive guys, whether it be an edge rush or a defensive tackle?
I know Seattle likes him. Obviously, they're at 5 because of the Russell Wilson trade. They can do a whole lot of things. I don't think they're going to go quarterback at 5. I think they have other, including pass rush. Jalen Carter's another guy that makes sense. They could go corner with Gonzalez or Witherspoon. I would be surprised, even though I know they like Richardson, if they went that route, given the fact that they have a Pro Bowl quarterback who played really good football for most of last season, and Geno Smith there.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think when you're up there that high, Femi, I think I could see Carter being their guy. Like, one thing Pete knows, and Pete understands this better than anybody, he hasn't had a dominant front. Hasn't had a 3 technique. Now, they signed Dermonte Jones this offseason from Denver since Michael Bennett. So they haven't had that kind of – he knows he needs to improve that defensive front. And when you get a pick up here, you got to make sure if it's a rusher, it's got to be a perfect, whether it's Will Anderson, Walker, whomever you pick. Carter makes a lot of sense here.
Yeah, and also, I mentioned Gonzalez. He fits that profile of the big, long corners. And you think about potentially they have Tariq Woolen, who was one of the best players in the league defensively for most of last season. They have Kobe Bryant at Cincinnati, a really technically sound young corner. If you were to add a guy like Gonzalez, that makes a lot of sense. Another guy, like Harry Wilson, the edge at Texas Tech, another enticing player. I don't know if he goes as high as 5, but to Michael's point, I think they will find another need and address that first at 5.
Hey, Jordan, we got 15 seconds left. Lamar Jackson in 2023 will be playing where?
Wow. On the spot, fellas, I like it. I'm going to go Ravens. Maybe I could be wrong, but right now, this second, I'm going to go Ravens.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.